So we are here at the Roots Asia conference in the beautiful city of Chiang Mai, and I'm joined here by Alyson Playford, who is Head of Aviation Business Development, and Ben Hoskins, who is Senior Manager for Airline Network and Business Development, both from London Heathrow Airport. So Alyson and Ben, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's no problem, Polly. Delighted to do so.
My first question for you is, how is the recovery of Heathrow going? Are you back to full capacity just yet?
So we're not quite, but we're pretty close, to be honest with you. I think we look at the performance for the last couple of months, and I would suggest that we're in the 90 percentile. So
90%?
really, yes.
That's fantastic. And in terms of your passenger mix, would you say it's mostly business or leisure, or how is it
So
split?
it's been an interesting recovery. So I think what we've seen is there's an awful lot more leisure traffic than we would have historically done seen at Heathrow, and it's through a couple of things. So firstly, I think there's a sort of pent-up demand from people who want to travel.
Absolutely.
Over following a couple of years of not being able to do so. But I think the other thing as well is the mix of routes that are being flown at Heathrow has changed. So we've got, we're very fortunate that Virgin have consolidated all of their operations at Heathrow, so we've got a lot more Caribbean flying, for example, than we've ever had before. So there's quite a bit more long-haul leisure flying than we've seen historically in the long-range.
And what does consolidation actually mean? I've heard that term used a lot in this section of airports and airlines.
Consolidation is essentially, an airline that has operations at a number of different airports, consolidating in one airport. So during COVID, Virgin consolidated their operation. Actually, quite a few airlines consolidated at Heathrow temporarily, but some of them have just maintained their operation just at Heathrow, which is a testament to the different opportunities they get at Heathrow versus other London airports, including connection, cargo, the frequent flyer passengers as well prefer, and the business passengers prefer flying to Heathrow.
I see. I guess Virgin, I've seen them marketing quite heavily as well at the moment, especially on TV. They're quite distinctive. You always know it's them when they start, which is very good marketing on their part. Now, have you noticed any trends coming through in passengers, and have their expectations of you as an airport evolved at all, or do they just want to get back to normal?
So there's an element of it that people want to get back to normal, to be very honest with you, and I think what people want is they want some certainty about how their journey is going to be. So there was a period of time, I think last year, when most airports were finding it challenging. So it wasn't just a UK issue, it was global. So global aviation has been really badly impacted in terms of resourcing. And so that's a journey that a lot of us are on. So when we talk to our colleagues at other airports around the world, from Sydney to Frankfurt and Amsterdam and Heathrow, that we've all experienced the same challenges. And so that has led to, I think, some concerns in some travelling passengers, certainly last year, that their journey might have been interrupted or cancelled, or bags could have been delayed. The reality is that we're all getting back to a much stronger, certain position for passengers, and I think that's what they want. They want a level of service, but they want certainty that their flight is going to operate, that they're going to be able to get through security, so through check-in and security, their bag will make it onto the plane, their bag will be with them at the other end when they arrive. And that's really, the ultimate. Of course, people want the niceties of special service, but in reality, that's what they want. They want to know that when they get on that plane, they're going to arrive in their bag and get there at the time that was advertised.
I noticed when I flew from Heathrow, they put a tag on my bag that said "hot" in capital letters, which reassured me that my bag was going to be treated with precedent over all the other bags that they had to transfer, which was nice.
We've made massive developments in the last sort of 10, 15 years. I think everyone will admit that 15 years ago Heathrow wasn't at the top of the table in terms of service, things like that. But the last 15 years has really, a lot of money has been spent, and the reputation of Heathrow is incredibly important. So there were some difficult decisions that had to be made last year, and I think they were the right decisions in the end. But thankfully, it looks like we're over the worst of it now. We can
Absolutely.
focus on growth.
Yeah, John Holland Kay at the recent Airport Operators Association conference, he mentioned the cap that he had to impose over the summer, and he said that it was simply because he wanted passengers to have the optimum service level. So obviously, difficult decision, but he obviously felt it was the right one. In terms of your key focus areas going forward then for this year, are there any particular regions or markets that you're really focusing on trying to develop?
So it's a balance. So we're very focused on the markets where we're extraordinarily strong. We lead the market in terms of market share. So for example, the US is really important to us. We will, I think the calculation is that this summer we will have 25% of all of Europe's traffic of routes to North America. Wow. So it's huge. So
Yeah.
it's a big market for us. It's an incredibly important one. India, for very obvious historic reasons, is an incredibly important market in the UK, and we have a very significant flying programme from India. In addition to that, the Middle East is also incredibly important to us. Those are markets where we are very strong, but we've also done a lot of work to identify markets where we need to strengthen our route network. So work with carriers who are in markets such as, South America, Africa, where for regional reasons perhaps we're not as strong as we should be. And so those are the things that we're really going to focus on in the next year, in the next 5. So route networks don't get delivered overnight. So
No, I heard they take many years.
Yes.
Well, and the reason we're at Routes Asia is we need to rebuild our Asian network. So we're very proud that, before COVID, we went from 3 to 13 destinations in China. We brought in 5 new Chinese routes. So rebuilding China, and we're really excited that China is now opening up. And then also rebuilding our network in Southeast Asia as well, which is still not quite at the levels it was in 2019. So that's a big focus for us and what we're focusing on this week.
Is it going to be like a tidal wave now that China has reopened?
Well, I think probably from an operational perspective, we prefer it not to be a tidal
Yes.
wave. I think we need to be sort of clear and steady as we deliver and grow back up again. But we know there's a huge amount of demand and excitement about China reopening, both at our end. So our retailers are very excited about Chinese passengers coming back. So it's in everybody's interest to make sure that it's a managed growth back in. The ground handlers are ready to handle those customers and additional planes. So, but we're preparing for that at the moment.
Yes, you've had a huge recruitment drive recently at Heathrow, haven't you?
We have.
I can't remember the exact figure that John said at this conference. I feel like he said it was 20,000 people in the past 6 months. Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
So it depends entirely on your perspective. So we tend to talk about the Heathrow ecosystem as Team Heathrow.
Yeah.
So it's everybody that operates and works at Heathrow, and the number of people that were lost out of that ecosystem was very significant.
Yeah.
And we're working collectively across Team Heathrow with our partners, our airlines, ground handlers, the caterers, the people who provide the catering, the cleaning organisations, as well as our own people in security and so on, to make sure that we've got enough people, the right people, to actually deliver the kind of service that we need to have an airport that runs really smoothly.
It's a huge undertaking,
Yes.
A huge employer for the region as
Yes.
well, I imagine. Now, can you give us your 30-second pitch on why an airline should choose to fly into you rather than your other competitors in London?
So it's a mix of the mix of carriers that are operating at Heathrow. We are a hub. We're the UK's only hub, and we are an airport that is renowned worldwide. So if you speak to people, so ordinary people who want to travel in Asia, in Africa, they've all heard of Heathrow Airport. They've very often not heard of others. So that's one of the reasons why a carrier should want to operate there. We have a really strong cargo proposition because of the mix of carriers. Because we have home carriers and we have quite a lot of short-haul carriers. We've got a lot of connecting traffic. So we have connecting traffic coming from India across to North America, to Canada and the US. We've got connecting traffic in and out of Europe via Heathrow, and all of those things come together to mean we've got a fantastic proposition. It's one of the reasons why most long-haul carriers want to be at Heathrow Airport. It's why there are a lot of carriers who want to talk to us here today, at this conference and other conferences that we attend, wanting to find out how they can get slots at the most slot-constrained, very nearly the most slot-constrained airport in the world.
Yes. Then what has the story been with cargo? A lot of airports saw it as a bright spot during the pandemic, but it has kind of tapered off for them now.
Well, so it's really interesting because of the volume of long-haul flying that we have at Heathrow. Traditionally, 95%, I think, of all the cargo that flies out of Heathrow in 2019 and beforehand is in the belly hold of long-haul aircraft. It's not on dedicated freighters. So what happened during the pandemic is that because we had a lot of ad hoc slots and we were seeking any flying that we could get at that time, a lot of freighters were able to use Heathrow Airport's runways to bring in much needed freight, whether it was PPE at the very beginning of the pandemic, whether it was other supplies that were required after that. And certainly, for example, last Christmas, bringing in Christmas for the people of the UK, incredibly important. But it does mean that as we are moving back towards and very close to full schedules of movements and the recovery of long haul at such a rate that the volume of freighters has fallen away and the cargo is going back into the belly hold of long haul flying.
Okay, that's super interesting. Now, I mentioned again the conference that I heard John Holland Kay speak at, and also at this conference as well. We've spoken a lot about sustainability. John mentioned at the time that 20% of the world's SAF supply came through Heathrow last year. That's a huge proportion of it. Are you finding that airlines are asking you specifically, and it's part of your conversations about SAF and how they can use it, how you can accommodate that?
So we've specifically, as I'm sure John would have mentioned, we've specifically incentivised the use of SAF at Heathrow Airport, and so we don't supply SAF. So the airlines have to secure their own SAF. So we don't do that. But we're very, very keen to have carriers use SAF at Heathrow, and we had such a fantastic response to the incentive last year that it resulted in, as John has said, that volume of SAF being used at Heathrow. 20% of all of the SAF that's being used. That's extraordinary to say that was in one airport, and it's a tiny percentage of SAF. But it's a start, and it's a really important start. And we're in the process at the moment of rolling out the incentive again for this year. And new carriers who weren't signed up for it last year have signed up for it this year.
Fantastic.
And it'll be a bigger incentive as well.
Yeah.
So, the goal, and we've been quite open with the airlines, is that every year we want to increase that incentive.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that you're going to, at the moment, with the current supply challenges and the price of SAF, you need to incentivise the airlines to bring it down. And clearly it worked last year.
Yeah.
20%, Alyson said, amazing achievement.
Yeah, it's great to hear Heathrow leading the way in that aspect. And who knows, maybe next year it will be 25%, maybe even 30%.
Yeah.
Now, what are the challenges facing route developers such as yourself, would you say?
Well, the biggest challenge is the fact that we're slot constrained. So we are technically full. We've always been technically full, even through the pandemic, technically full. But the reality is it's hard work. Now it's really difficult to find slots, but we work incredibly hard. Ben does an absolutely brilliant job of taking on board the fact that in the UK we are allowed, secondary trading is allowed in the UK. That means carriers can lease their slots for money and they can sell their slots if they want to. And so we actively engage with carriers on trading. So getting them to think about leasing, getting some to babysit their slots for them and occasionally to sell. So that's really a significant thing that we're having to use to try to provide the opportunity for growth for carriers and also to provide slots for new entrants. And a lot of it is about making sure that they secure their slots going forward.
Yeah.
Now, that is a that's a question that a lot of people get engaged in a discussion of. If they are not able to fly the slots, then if it was an airport where there wasn't secondary trading, they would be required to hand their slots back, and then they could be recycled onto somebody else. But secondary trading is a part of our life in the UK, and therefore we want to make the most of it. And this is really about helping a carrier to ensure they don't lose their slots by getting them to get somebody else to fly.
Yeah.
So I think it's really not a question of empty flights, it's more a question of making sure that the carrier perhaps has a route that's really important in our network, but for whatever reason at the moment they can't fly it, that we don't ultimately then lose that route forever, but we can actually secure that it can come back at a future date.
Yeah.
And occasionally we do get slots back in the pool and things like that, and it's about making the airlines aware particularly to apply for slots. It's amazing how many times we get airlines come to us and go, oh well, Heathrow's full, so we don't bother applying for slots. But you've got to be in it to win it, you've got to be applying, and then you never know what might come back. Potentially there might be some new routes as well, whether you might get priority and things like that as well, that are coordinated. So the message really is always apply, because you never know what might become available.
Yeah. It's working to dispel the assumptions that people make about you as well, isn't it? Now, what are the opportunities then that you are looking to capitalise on this year?
So we've, as I said, I think I mentioned earlier on, we've spent a lot of time looking at our network for the next 5 years, and that's where our priorities have come from.
Yeah.
And interestingly, we're really happy that BA has already announced our biggest unserved route in the United States. That's part of our strategy, and that's Cincinnati. So that's really exciting, and we're looking forward to more to come on that front. Not necessarily from BA, but from a number of carriers. So are there any others that we're...
Well, I think one of the other things that's really exciting is the Elizabeth line, which is a new underground line which connects the east of London directly to Heathrow. So whereas the financial district, Canary Wharf, was 1 hour and 20 minutes before, and you had to change trains and things like that, it's now 40 minutes, and it just opens up a whole new catchment area for it. So that's really exciting. And I'd say connectivity is something that we see as a big opportunity, so trying to help ensure the airlines are connecting with each other. I think is really important. We're excited that Virgin is joining SkyTeam as well. We think that will help connectivity. And British Airways as our carrier is incredibly important for us as well.
Yeah.
In that part. So, we definitely the connectivity bit. We want to build on that UK hub status.
Fantastic. And final question for you both then. What is your business outlook for the future? Are you feeling positive?
I'm feeling very, very optimistic and very positive about the future. I think it's wonderful. So Ben and I both very fortunate we work for an airport that we really are excited to work for and with, and to help Heathrow to develop its business even further. So very excited about the opportunities. Even though some of them are hard to win, nevertheless, the harder they are to win sometimes, the more exciting.
Satisfying. Yeah,
and I think it's just great being back at these conferences as well. Face-to-face conversations, you can't be, virtual. Yeah, we had to do it during COVID, but now we're having those face-to-face conversations. Most of the airlines are back at these conferences as well. I think it's just we're on the road to recovery and growth, which is great after what's been a very difficult 2 or 3 years for the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in the air travel sector. We've got to be jet set, live the life, haven't we?
Exactly.
If we're not getting on planes and flying, if we aren't doing that, then how can we expect other customers travelling, potentially travelling public, to believe that it's okay to do that job?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a vote of confidence, isn't it? So if you don't support your own sector, then you're lost. Alyson, Ben, that was my final question. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure.